like to say that our previous interactions at your instance helped us in a way to make some initial views available to you about where we are, what the challenges are. I also like to say that this is a very difficult climatic season for our roads. We are in the midst of very, very heavy predicted and actually delivered rainfall. So this is not the best of times. This is a season that everybody involved with public infrastructure, road transport, whether by road, by rail, and also even aviation. This is the season of the year that is most challenging. This is the season when flights can be cancelled because of weather. This is the season when trains may not move because tracks are flooded. And this is certainly the season when travel by road will become difficult. You will have flooding, washouts, and everything. We expect that as the season comes to an end, in a matter of fewer weeks and not too many days, we should be able to mobilize all our resources back to the road to begin repair work and to continue construction work. So that said, I will start then by making an overview of the 2019 appropriation, just to explain how far we have gone. And John Act, the ministry was then known as Power Works and Housing. So it was a budget for 3 sectors. Out of that amount, 251.708 billion was the appropriation for capital to the works sector. You will find that in paragraph 2 of my brief. If you go to page 2, the breakdown of that 251.7 billion is shown in paragraphs A to C, and it is 251.7 billion broken down to between the ministry and its parastatals. 223.255 billion was allocated to the ministry, and the parastatals got 28.452 billion. The overhead cost was 16.035 billion. The breakdown is in Roman figures 1 and 2 under paragraph B. And you will see that for the 3 sectors, the overhead cost was 774.001 million. The overhead cost of the parastatals is broken down in subparagraph Roman figure 2. And you will see that the biggest portion of that breakdown went to the Federal Route Maintenance Agency, which was 14.2 billion. And understandably, because of the work that they have to do across the 36 states, the personnel cost for the 3 sectors was 12.820 billion, and the breakdown is in Roman figures 1 and 2. Of course, these are costs managed directly by the Office of the Accountant General, so I will come back to speak fully to them. In terms of releases, and before I go further here, sir, Joint Chairman and distinguished senators and honorable members, please let me crave your indulgence first to say a few things. That the budget performance we are reporting now is the budget signed on the 27th of May 2019 It is a budget that I think this weekend will have run for 5 months, not for 12 months. So the run rate of that budget, if fully implemented, will today be at the most about 41%, given the time that it has run. So whatever we then report, I will respectfully argue, should be performance rated against the run time, not against 12 months, because we haven't operated the budget for 12 months. I would also like to make the additional point that because of our budgeting and accounting system, we are constrained to report performance that has only been paid for. And so in budget performance, even though work has been done and hasn't been paid for, we don't account for it as performance. So I will deal with those two points as I go on. So you will see that in terms of budget releases in paragraph 3A, what we have is 53.319 billion. And so if we apply that to the capital allocation, amount actually released in cash is 53.3 billion. And the total allocation is 223 billion. We can only report a performance of 23.88% out of what I said should be 41%. Now, so we expect, if the budget runs for the remaining 7 months, that we should receive additional allocation if the budget will be performed 100%, which seldom happens, even globally. We should expect to see another 169.9 billion. But that is as far as performance for payment actually made goes. If we go further to sub-paragraph B, you will see details of the actual disbursements, how we have utilized that 53.3 billion, of which we have used 45.319 billion to make payment for outstanding certificates on road, bridges, maintenance works in the highway department. And as at the date when we submitted this brief, which was the 15th of October, we had cumulative unpaid certificates of 321.137 billion. Now, that is work that has been done, measured, certified, and awaiting payment. Let me also say for the record that the release of 53 billion that I referred to was only made in September. Yes, sir. September this year. So the budget was signed in May. The first release came in September. And the reasons are all too obvious. Everybody knows the fiscal challenges that the country is facing. So mobilizing resources and ensuring that all departments and agencies get something to do their work is the big challenge. And I think even the chairman has referred to it in his brief. So if we apply these unpaid certificates against our budget, total budget, what members will see is that it is no longer a 23% performance. It is actually a 127% performance over actual, if you apply those numbers for work that has been done and unpaid. Now, in paragraph 6, now the details of the certificates and what is owed are provided in the document marked Annex 1. And I believe the chairman, from the previous briefing we made to him, has alluded to this. If you look at Annexure 1, it runs for 43 pages. And you will see that there are 540 projects listed in Annexure 1, showing the names of the contractors, the contract sum, the provision in the 2019 Appropriation Act, the amount certified, the percentage of work done, the amount paid, and the amount utilized from the 2019 budget, and so on and so forth. It is also important to say that in those 540 items, there is no state that does not have at least one project or the other. And I will come back to this as to recommendations we're making. There is no zone that is left out in terms of provisioning for one road or the other. But this will come when I deal with recommendations and how we plan to proceed. Paragraph C on page 3 shows that 273.9 million was released for overhead for the period January to June 2019. Members will recall that even while we were waiting for the 2019 budget to be signed, the 2018 budget was running, and there were also constitutional provisions that allowed government to continue to function based on previous year estimates. And that is what you will see there. Personnel costs, as I said, is managed by the Office of the Accountant General. The details have been provided in paragraph D of 9.504 billion for the three sectors, and they are managed under the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System. The revenues generated were 162.847 million. As I said at a previous committee hearing, the ministry is largely a cost center, not necessarily a revenue generation center. But from some of our activities, we do this, and they have been remitted to the consolidated revenue account. Now, that is the highlight, really, of what has happened in 2019 in a nutshell. The other matter I just wish to perhaps address is the funding of some certain projects which are referred to in Annexure 2. And those are projects under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. And there are 4 of them listed here. The second Niger Bridge is one of them, Annexure 2. The second Niger Bridge is one of them. The Abuja to Kano Highway is another. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a third. And the East-West Road is also under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. But that project, the East-West Road, is not a project of the Ministry of Works. It's a project of the Ministry of the Niger Delta. But it is benefiting or listed to benefit from this Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. So also is the Mambila Hydropower Project. But the important, and that is under the Ministry of Power. Those are the 5 projects captured under the Presidential Infrastructure Development, funded by the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. The point to make is that, again, whether it is a road, whether it is a power project, they spread across Nigeria of where they are located. So I just wanted to make that point. I would also like to make the point that apart from highways that connect states, we thought that it was necessary to intervene in the education sector of the country, and we chose federal tertiary institutions. And to date, we have 48 road projects at various stages of completion inside universities. Again, every time we roll out in phases, we make sure that at least if it's 10 we are able to do in this phase, they are distributed according to the 6 geopolitical zones. And that's what we have done. Some have been finished, some are just awarded, some are in the middle of implementation. But I think it's important to make this point that that is a spending in education that is not fully accounted for when we are having a national conversation about how much the country is spending in education. Oftentimes, the picture is only painted of what is budgeted in the Ministry of Education. And then we are then reckoned as having not spent enough for education. So I just think it's important to make this point. I made this point yesterday to another committee because there are also interventions in power when we were there across 37 universities, and the first phase was 9. These are also spendings in education. So education spending goes beyond the classroom. That's just the point I wanted to make. Then, if you go to Annexure 4, sir, there are again projects in roads which are funded through PPP by the Tax Credit Initiative, particularly now known as Executive Order 7. It was a project, it was a policy from the previous administration which has been expanded in its scope and application to include certain other categories of roads, particularly targeted at industrial clusters and so on and so forth, to drive manufacturing. That's Annexure 3. Annexure 4. Pardon me. Annexure 4. I'm sorry. Annexure 4, not 3. Tax credit scheme. So, yes, sir. At the moment, there, I think Obajana Kaba is one of the roads. The Apapa Urushoki Expressway is another. The Bodo Boni Bridge is also one. I think we've omitted Bodo Boni here. Director, Bodo Boni Bridge is under that category because the company there is the NLNG. Tax credit, yes, sir. Bodo Boni Bridge was omitted here. My error. I apologize. It's a bridge and a road to link Bodo to Boni. The contractor is Julius Berger. The company that is part funding it, this is a part funding. It's a 120 billion naira project. So NLNG is funding 60 billion, for which it will then claim tax credit. Federal government will fund the balance. I believe that's in Senator Sekibu's territory. Yes. Sir? It's not here. That's why my omission. But I remembered it from memory. That's why I said we should please note it. It's one of the projects. Now, at the moment, I said the president has expanded the scope because also manufacturing clusters whose role for moving raw materials and finished products were affected. So after a meeting with private sector, some of them said, look, they want to apply to do not interstate route, but cluster roads that lead into and out of their industries. So we have about 19 now under consideration. The reason they are not here is because they haven't been approved. So there's a process that they have to go through before they approve. Then last week,
what's the cost of
120 billion. Bodo Bonnier. Last week we had scope is about 2 or 3 bridges, and I think about 30 something kilometers. Engineer Uzo, about kilometers. Then we ask questions. Let's do everything in sequence. Let me also say that apart from roads construction, there are also roads under multilateral funding from budget, because I was trying to address the different funding sources that we have used, from budget to tax credit to presidential infrastructure fund, and also to international loans like the China Exim, and I think that is dealt with in Annexure 5. So you will see the Makurdi Enugu, the Abuja Kefi Akwanga Lafia, the Akwanga Jos to Bauchi, the Umfum Ekok Road leading to Cameroon. Now let me quickly point out that if you go to that annexure, Mr. Chairman, I have made the point that we are operating in a very difficult fiscal space. The major source of revenue for the country still remains oil, and I also want to point out that the budget size for the country has increased between 2015 and now. In 2015, the budget size was about 4 trillion. Now it is 10 trillion. And the challenges are that our revenues have not increased at the same pace as our express commitment to spend. So that then, with respect, imposes a choice upon us. We don't have enough, we want to do many things, it compels a choice on us. Our own proposal, therefore, is that given the liabilities we have, which I have spoken about, and the amount approved in the appropriation bill now pending before you, we are forced to make choices. And those choices, I would suggest, recommend us to first consider whether we want to apply the limited resources available equally to all the 540 projects. That's one choice. Or whether we want to apply the resources available by placing some initial priority on some projects. That's another choice. We think that the better choice is to stagger how we implement so that we can complete some things and therefore they are put to use, instead of doing everything at once with limited resources. And we think this is possible without leaving anybody behind. I'm saying this because members will recall that when Mr. President presented the appropriation bill, one of the recommendations he made was a focus on completing ongoing projects. We are bound by that recommendation. We commend it also to Parliament, and having regard to the reason for it. In paragraph 7, in the last sentence, based on the focus of the budget proposals, we intend to use our resources to focus on the roads A1 to A9. Now, roads A1 to A9 cut across all the geopolitical zones of Nigeria. They also serve major ports. They connect to major fuel depots so that energy can move across the country. They also connect to major agricultural hubs. Those are the roads that lead from the north to the south and from the east, from north to south, connect Lagos Port to Ilela, connect Warri Port to Katsina, connect Calabar Port to Maiduguri and to Yobe, and connect Port Harcourt Port also to Maiduguri. And there are horizontal connections too from the A5 to A9. So they are labeled as A1 to A9, but they are not just 9 roads. They have a major interconnect. They connect to the ports, they connect to the agrarian areas, they connect to our fuel depots. I call these roads the largest economic drivers of Nigeria. And it is our view, and we commend to you, that if we make these roads motorable, Nigeria will experience radical and beneficial growth and economic development. If we do this as a priority, that doesn't mean we will leave other things, because I'm mindful that members have electoral promises that they have made, and that is why I said we have a choice to spread everything evenly and not complete anything, but we are saying we should give priority to some roads. Now, the roads that we are recommending should be priority are be submitted as Annexure 6. And if members kindly go through those roads, all our zones, it's like building a house. Then we can come back to the last mile roads, the roads that go to our constituencies and our senatorial districts. They are also important. But our recommendation is that if we can't connect your state, we can't even get to your constituency. So those are the roads. And we've tried to ensure that everybody is connected, everybody benefits, so nobody is marginalized. And because we don't have enough money, we think it is sensible to choose, as I briefed at the previous meeting of the committee, is a choice between paying your creditor, paying your student school fees, paying your rent, and going to enjoy yourself. We're at that point now where we must make those critical investments in our roads. So the details are in Annexure 6. Our challenges, we operate with some challenges, and they include compensation claims. They are as diverse as our country is diverse. Some of our experience is that immediately government announces it wants to start any project, some communities just go there and start digging either graves or start building along that corridor deliberately to escalate claims for rights to compensation. Mr. President has directed that states that want projects to come to them or to continue must help to resolve these compensation issues. And we think that this is how it should be. because under the Land Use Act anyway, acquisition of land is a state responsibility, and it is the acquiring authority that ordinarily should pay the compensation. So we would also need your help and your support, particularly across the constituencies where because these delays, claims for compensation, if they are not resolved, delays access to the site. And when access to the site is delayed, delivery of the project is impacted. We also have community issues. They are again diverse. Some people have received letters, for example, where even on an existing road that is now being reconstructed, a community has come to say, well, they don't agree that the road that was built 40 years ago, it should be called XYZ Road, that their community is inside and we must include the name. Otherwise, they won't allow the contractor to work. An existing road. We have also seen instances where some communities demand that the contractor, before he continues or concludes, must build certain projects for them, which is not in the contract. They want schools, they want a borehole, they want this, which is not in the contract. And if the contractor is unable, as is usually the case, then they become hostile, and again it impacts the delivery of the project. Of course, we also have demand for new projects coming from all sides of the spectrum. And as at yesterday, I think the new projects request that we received was 49. Yes? 49, which we've compiled. So, without enough money to complete what we have, we are having demands for new ones. So, our very, very strong recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is to stay action on new projects so that we can complete some of those projects which have gone. And the longer we delay them, costs change. Some of these projects were awarded at a time when the exchange rate was 165 to 1, when cement was much cheaper, when fuel was selling at 97 naira per litre, and so on and so forth. When inflation figures were not what they are now. So all of those numbers have changed. And the quicker, and I must point out that we have just recently approved a minimum wage. Again, cost of labor will somehow or the other be impacted in these roads. The longer we delay them, the more inimical it will be to completion. These are the economic realities. The last point I wish to make, because it is not just enough in my view to point out challenges. I've pointed out some, I've made some recommendations about land and about all of those things, is about alternative sources of funding, which was captured in the chairman's opening remarks. I have pointed out some of the alternative sources of funding we have looked at. I've pointed out Sukuk, I've pointed out the Presidential Infrastructure Fund, I've pointed out the tax credits. So it is not correct if anybody says we are not looking at PPPs. It's not correct. These are all forms of private sector initiatives. What perhaps I would recommend, and which I have addressed during my confirmation hearing, was that we should do something like launch a national infrastructure bond. And this will be the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance and Debt Management Office. I had done an envelope size of, say, 10 trillion. That doesn't mean we want to raise 10 trillion this year. But if we launch such an instrument with a very competitive coupon rate, backed by law, as a very secure investment, that people can put their money into. I think that is one way to entice, if that is the word, to inspire agencies like the pension funds to invest money in a secure government-backed instrument. They are investing in treasury bills because it's government instrument. It's secure. Because the whole idea is that the monies of workers in that fund must never be lost. That's the whole idea. So they are a little concerned about infrastructure because of some of these challenges. So if government backs it, then we can, anytime we need to raise money, we can have a 10 trillion fund over 4 years or 5 years. Every year or every period we need to fund projects. We issue a demand for subscription and raise 2 trillion, 3 trillion. And more importantly, the more important point, and this is not a proven concept, they're just my ideas, is that we should then disaggregate the sizes of investments that people can make. There's a lot of money in the informal sector, cash kept at home, that people, if they are convinced that this is a secure government instrument, want to invest 10,000 naira, and 50,000 of them want to do that. Why should they be excluded? It's so that it's not just the big hitters, the millionaires and the billionaires who invest. Consumer groups, cooperatives can also bring their income and put it in if we disaggregate the levels at which people can play. I say this because of my experience with the last 2 sukuk bonds that we raised, and those bonds were always oversubscribed. But because of the law that regulates how much we can take, we couldn't mobilize all of the funds. But the oversubscription suggests to me that there is a large appetite. I will conclude, sir, that if we take this recommendation forward, we should also be sensitive in that instrument to the cultural and faith considerations of our people. And I say this advisedly because the conventional bond and interest payment on it conflicts with some people's religious beliefs, and we must be sensitive to that. The sukuk that does not charge interest but takes rent is more consistent with some people's religious. So if we want everybody to participate, we must have instruments that have different levels and different opportunities for everybody to play. So, Mr. Chairman, Joint Chairman, distinguished senators, honorable members, I will stop there.
We have listened to the honorable minister's presentation. I'm sure you have a number of questions and observations to make. In particular, the alternative sources of funding the minister mentioned. Sukuk, the federal government has tried it, and it has worked very well, and I don't see why it should not be repeated. Particularly now we are approaching November. Usually, it is in the month of November that you float, the whole process. And equally important is the issue of pension funds that you mentioned. We have well over 8 to 9 trillion naira, even though not all of it is available for investment in the road sector. Quite a number of it is already in treasury bills. But we were told that the money is available if there is assurance that it will be repaid. And equally important is the PPP arrangement, which we feel will go a long way in relieving government from the burden of constructing roads and maintaining them. Perhaps Our country today is the only country where roads are being built by government, maintained by government, without any tolls being collected. If you go to countries like Morocco, Egypt, South Africa, even Malaysia, government is virtually removing its hands from constructing roads. It's now the private sector that is doing the road construction, rehabilitation, and what have you. And the private sector recoup whatever investment they make within a period of 20-25 years. We believe that there are investors, both foreign and domestic, that are interested in investing in the road sector. The only thing is that we have not done enough publicity on this. So the funding gap is so wide that government will not be able to fund all the roads we have. As rightly said, we have well over 500 roads in the country. And we require close to about 10 trillion naira to complete these projects without bringing new ones. And that is the entire budget of this country. If we can get private sector that can come in and invest, give them these critical roads, particularly those of them that are viable. Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja, Kano, even Maiduguri, Kano, Onitsha, Enugu, Port Harcourt, Enugu Expressway. These are roads that have volumes of traffic, and we believe very strongly that private sector can take over these roads, construct them, maintain them, recover their money, and hand over this road back to the government. Or they may sign another contract. On the challenges you mentioned, you see, most of these challenges can be solved by the governors. If the community is trying to be difficult, well, federal government should leave that to the governors. Under the Land Use Act, as rightly said, the governor is the one that had the responsibility of allocating land. And even compensation. If the governor wants that road to be constructed by federal government, he should pay the compensation. I don't see why federal government should pay compensation for roads. Federal government is more or less helping the state. And it shouldn't be difficult for government to get right away. So those challenges are real, and I believe if we engage the governors, they will be able to solve them. Distinguished colleagues, I'm sure you have a number of issues, you have a number of observations to make.